Hello, this is Chris Jewett with Twisted Hobbies. I'm going to do a video today on the Spektrum V-tail setup and talk a little bit about how we think about the V-tail on the ProXy. So I'm going to start with your standard Twisted Hobbies receiver. I've got a bind plug in the first position, a power supply, in this case a speed control in the throttle position, and then channels 3 and 4, which are normally your rudder and elevator, are the two V-tail servos that I've got set up right here. I've already got the servo arm centered, and I'm going to walk through how to set up the V-tail on this radio. This is a DX20, but this is pretty similar on all of the Spektrum radios. So we're going to enter the programming mode in the main system setup. We're going to select a model or a new model. I've already got one set up for this. And then you're going to go to the model type. It's going to be an airplane. And then you're going to go to the aircraft type. And we're going to select what this one has. In this case, with the ProXy, it's a flapper on wing. So it's not a dual aileron servo wing, but a flapper on wing. And you'll see in this radio, there are two V-tail options, V-tail A and V-tail B. I'll come back and show you what that means in a minute. But for the starting point, start with V-tail A. That's all you need to set up for V-tail specific stuff on this radio. So now I'm going to bind it. So I'll bring the receiver over here so you can see it. You plug in a battery, and it's flashing. So that means it's ready to bind. Press the bind button, turn on the radio.
Binding. DSMX 22 milliseconds.
Bind is complete.
Bind complete.
I'm going to pull out the bind plug so that next time I turn off the receiver, it doesn't automatically try to rebind. And then I'll just get it out of the way so we don't have to see it. So with this plugged in, we want both the servos to move in the same direction when you move the elevator stick. In this case it does. And then when you move the rudder, you want them to move in opposite directions. So just generally speaking, this is how the ProXy is set up. Now I don't know if they're going the right direction for in the model, and I'll show you how to change that in a minute, but basically you want them to go up and down in the same direction. So you're pulling both the elevators up, pushing both elevators down, rudder pushing one side one direction, pulling the other side the other direction, and that's how that's set up. Now let's go back and talk about V-tail A and B. So if we go to the system menu again, go back to that aircraft type, wrong button there, aircraft type, and go to V-tail B. And then exit back out of this. Now you can see up and down, they're moving in opposite directions. And then with the rudder, they're moving in the right direction, which is incorrect for the ProXy. But that's the first place you should go to. If you hook everything up and your elevators aren't moving in the same direction and your rudders are not moving in the same direction, then that's the first thing to switch, is switch from V-tail A to V-tail B. So I'll show you how to get there again, because I'm going to set it back. Go to the system setup, aircraft type, V-tail A. All right, everybody, I've taken that same receiver that we were just binding and setting up in the radio. I've got the radio set up just the way we left it. It's on V-tail A. And when I plugged it in, the elevators move in the correct direction. So both rudder vators go up, both rudder vators go down with the stick. Up, down. But when I move the rudder stick to the right, the rudder vators go to the left. So the rudders are opposite of the way that they should go. So you can try to go in here and reverse the servos, but you're going to find that that doesn't work. So if I reverse one of them, now the elevators don't work in the correct direction. The rudders now work as elevators. And you can mess with this and find out that it's just never going to work. So that's elevators working as rudders, rudders working as elevators. So the solution to that is one of two things. You can go back to the system menu Make sure you don't have a propeller on the airplane or you have a failsafe set up. And go to aircraft type and now switch VTail to B. Alternatively, if you do not have the VTail A and B option in your radio, you go to your receiver and you switch the two servo leads around for the rudder and elevator channel. So now we're back. So now my elevator's stick is working like rudders and my rudder stick is working like elevators. But we go back to the menu again, to the servo setup, to the reverse screen, and we reverse one of them. Now it's working, but in the wrong direction. Elevator up, forward stick is elevator up, so that's backwards. So we're gonna reverse that one, and then reverse this one. Now we got elevator up, down, and then on the right rudder stick, right rudder vators. So everything is working properly. So the moral of the story here is you either need to switch your servo leads around at the receiver head and then reverse servos as required, or switch from VTail A or VTail B and reverse as required. But when it's all set up, that's up elevator, that's down elevator, that's right rudder, that's left rudder. If you are going to run a stabilized receiver, like this Lemon RX that we ran in the prototype, you're going to find that there's a VTail option in the receiver, and it's not set up to work with the radio set up in a VTail mode. So depending on the receiver that you use, read the instructions on the receiver to determine how to set up the VTail mode. Okay, now that we got everything moving in the right direction, we're going to work at some of the finer points here. So if you look at my right rudder vator here, we can see that there's a pretty good lineup. There's not much trimming to be done there, but on the left one, you can see it's a little bit out of whack. So you can do that with your mechanical push rods, but if you're like me and you don't always get that exactly perfect, or your servo doesn't center exactly the way you want it to, come down to your sub-trim menu and you dial that in. So as you dial that in, oh, I'm going the wrong way. Go back the other way. Get that thing to center up. So that one set it up, that one centered up. Ended up with about 56 on the trim. All right, so next I want to go to the Travelmenu and talk about a couple of things. So we're going to trim for max mechanical throw right now. So this is the left rudder vator, and I'm going to hold the stick down all the way, have it on the travel adjuster, and I'm going to adjust that up until it reaches its mechanical stop, or we hit 150, whichever happens first. In this case, I hit 150, and that's right there near the mechanical stop anyway. Do the same thing in the down direction. So again, now I'm holding the stick down, running that up as far as it'll go until we reach mechanical stop. And that was pretty close to 150, maybe 140. 137 is where the servo stops fighting. So up, down. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to move to the right side, select it, hold the stick up, and run it until we reach our mechanical stop. And the servo quits fighting. And in this case, it's pretty close to the same. It was 149 on one side, 149 on the other. We'll call it good. On the down, do the same thing. Run it down until we reach the max. Servo's fighting it a little bit. Back it off till the servo gets quiet. It's about the same spot. So we got 137 on the down, 149 on the up. So that's the maximum level that it'll go. Now, if I hold rudder all the way to the right and then give up elevator, we still have elevator throw. So the rudders don't max out the elevator throw. And if I do the same thing in the other direction, same thing occurs. And if I hold full up elevator and move the rudders, they still both move. So that's something you want to verify in your setup, that even at maximum throw with the stick, you still have rudder control and elevator control. Okay, let's talk for a second about V-tails. If you've never flown a V-tail, you might be concerned that V-tail is going to fly a little bit differently than a regular tail, or have some weird flying tendencies. And in this case, that's absolutely not how it works. So let's talk for a second just about the aerodynamics of how it works. So I've got the ruddervators pointed in a left rudder condition right now. The right ruddervator has a vector of up and to the left, and the left vector is down and to the left. The up and down vectors cancel each other out, so you have just a left vector. So it works just like a normal rudder on a normal plane. It doesn't induce a roll. It doesn't give you any sort of strange behavior when you crank the rudder over. Also, it knife edges better than you would think. The sides of the fuselage on this airplane are pretty huge, and they're designed to be able to fly in knife edge flight sustained with the amount of throw that the ruddervators can give you. You can even do a knife edge loop without any sort of tucking or rolling. It gives you a lot more control than you think you would have based on that. You might think those elevators are kind of small. Maybe they're not going to give you enough elevator throw. Well, there's a propeller right there in front of them turning. And it'll give you plenty of elevator throw to even harrier or do any sort of tight looping or stall maneuver that you might want to do, both inverted and upright. But keep in mind the propeller flow, or the airflow off the propeller, is one of the functions that makes it work. So in a glide mode, you might not have as much elevator throw as you would if the power were on the airplane. So keep that in mind as you fly it. In general, though, it's a very straight flying airplane. It is designed to fly upside down and knife edge, roll, continuously roll, just like you would with an aerobatic or 3D plane. And it'll do all of that with the V-tail and fly just like a normal tail. So just because you may not have flown a V-tail before, don't have any worry about that. It'll fly just like a regular plane if you set it up just like we have in this video. Let's talk about some of the other features besides the V-tail. This airplane is using the X fuselage construction. It gives us the most strength that we can get for the least amount of weight. The V-tail kind of makes it a simple way to use the X fuselage construction, but there's carbon braces that run through the landing gear all the way up to the wing spar, and that gives us a very strong box fuselage that gives us a lot of strength. That makes the nose very strong so that we can protect the camera gear and the battery. And the design of the nose is such that it gives you unobstructed view from your camera while allowing you still to have crash protection from crashing into the ground. And we've done a lot of bashing into the ground and found that our camera gear is pretty well protected and all of our electronics are protected in the process of doing that. We've given quite a bit of clearance for the propeller if you use a 5-inch propeller. We've done a lot of crash testing to see what kind of flexibility we can get out of this airplane without having any sort of interaction there. And if I take the airplane and I push it all the way to the ground, and it takes a lot of force to do that, you don't have any interaction with the propeller. You don't have any interaction from twisting either. So I would recommend that you stick with a 3-blade 5-inch propeller to give you the most crash worthiness of the airplane. A 6-inch will work, but you might take away some of that safety factor. One of the last features that I'll point out here is the landing gear. It seems like not much of a feature to point out, but there's a lack of airplanes that are FPV worthy in the world that have actual landing gear. And these landing gear are robust enough and give you the correct angle of attack for taking off and landing from the ground. And that's a fun experience FPV that not a lot of other airplanes provide. So you can drive it around on the ground and do all the fun stuff you want, playing like a car, or practice your takeoffs and landings or your one-wheel landings, or just play around close to the ground knowing that if you do touch the ground, you can just take off again. It also makes it a very good just flying line of sight airplane. With the landing gear, it's a good thing to practice your takeoffs and landings with, and also a good plane just to sport fly because it does great aerobatics and it's very, very durable. Hope you all enjoy the ProXy, and I hope this radio setup and kind of feature overview helped you all. Have a good one. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.